WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obviously...
Hold on, because this bombshell supposedly changed everything. The league reportedly handed her the biggest financial proposal in its history, convinced that dangling more than $1 million in annual compensation would silence critics and guarantee its future. This was supposed to mark the WNBA's undeniable breakthrough and officially cement a brand new era. Instead, Caitlin Clark and the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, pulled off the unthinkable. They did not hesitate, they flat out rejected the deal and completely walked away from the negotiating table. Reports now claim that decision has already produced its biggest casualty yet. League officials have reportedly revealed that Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is officially gone. This rejected CBA was never just another round of negotiations. It allegedly triggered a complete collapse of confidence in the WNBA's leadership. League executives supposedly misunderstood the revolution unfolding inside their own locker rooms, believing they could simply buy unity with a bigger paycheck. To understand why the commissioner is reportedly packing her bags, and why this rejection became the breaking point, you have to look closely at the offer everyone just turned down. If you're enjoying this coverage, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 83% of people watching still have not subscribed. It costs absolutely nothing, takes only a second, and your support truly means everything. So, have you subscribed yet? Awesome. Thank you for the incredible support. Now, let's get back into the story. According to reports, the league finally backed down and presented a proposal allowing elite players to earn more than $1 million per year through salary and incentives. To casual fans, that sounds like an enormous victory considering only a few years ago the maximum salary hovered around $200,000. That is unquestionably a massive jump. Yet players, led by influential stars like Caitlin Clark, Napheesa Collier, and Breanna Stewart, walked away from what was supposed to be the golden ticket that could have saved the 2026 season and prevented a labor dispute. Why? Because they believed $1 million was tiny compared with the billions the league is expected to generate. You need to understand the numbers the players are actually looking at. Recently, the WNBA signed a landmark recently. The WNBA landed a blockbuster media rights agreement reportedly worth more than $2 billion across the next decade. That is the kind of money that changes everything. That is the kind of fortune capable of creating wealth for entire generations. The Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, believed the owners were trying to pull a fast one when the league proposed $1 million salary ceiling for its biggest stars. While ownership kept control of nearly all the long-term upside, they were trying to lock players into a fixed amount. But the players are chasing far more than a bigger paycheck. They want their rightful slice of the pie. What they are demanding is revenue sharing. They want a percentage from every jersey purchased, every ticket scanned, and every advertisement broadcast. By rejecting that proposal, they did far more than refuse another contract. They rejected Cathy Engelbert's entire vision for running the business. For Cathy Engelbert, that refusal reportedly became the final breaking point. Her tenure has been defined by a desperate effort to balance the WNBA's old guard with the arrival of a completely new era. She spent the last 2 years walking a tightrope before finally losing her footing. To understand why she is reportedly stepping away, you have to revisit the absolute chaos of last season. From start to finish, it became a public relations nightmare. Everything began with travel issues, forcing players onto commercial flights while charter planes remained reserved for only a select group. Then came the prioritization rule, which effectively emptied money from players' pockets by forcing them to choose between lucrative overseas contracts and the WNBA. Yet the biggest damage arrived under the public spotlight. Remember the interview that completely changed everything? Cathy Engelbert faced questions on CNBC about racism, online abuse, toxic fan behavior, and the darker side of growing attention. Instead of forcefully defending her players, she delivered a corporate-style answer focused on rivalries and marketing rather than clearly condemning the abuse. She even compared the situation to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird during the 1980s. The reaction was disastrous. Players were furious. They felt completely abandoned. They believed the commissioner cared more about turning their pain into a marketing opportunity that boosted engagement than protecting them. At that time, the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, released a statement openly questioning Cathy Engelbert's leadership, yet she somehow survived the backlash. The owners believed she could still deliver massive financial growth, and that confidence kept her in power. But now, according to this narrative, she has failed to produce the financial results they expected. The owners originally recruited Cathy Engelbert from Deloitte. She was known as a numbers expert and a ruthless corporate executive. Her mission was simple: grow the business. To her credit, the league's value has climbed dramatically. But every commissioner carries two responsibilities: win over the players while keeping the owners satisfied. That became the one challenge she could never overcome. She failed to build trust with the athletes, who are the heart of the entire league. If your players no longer respect your leadership, running a professional sports league becomes nearly impossible. It became painfully obvious that Cathy Engelbert had lost her authority when players publicly embarrassed the league by rejecting what was promoted as a historic offer. The owners reportedly reached the conclusion that no agreement would ever be signed while Cathy Engelbert remained in charge. She had become the symbol of an outdated system: corporate, sluggish, and completely disconnected. Reports claiming Cathy Engelbert has resigned are now spreading across the internet. Insiders insist this was anything but a mutual decision. While the league desperately scrambles to control the narrative through vague statements and carefully chosen language, while the league keeps hiding behind carefully worded statements about ongoing discussions, the people truly running the show, the Board of Governors, are reportedly terrified of a possible lockout. They understand exactly what is at stake. They know their revenue could collapse in 2026 without Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and the league's biggest stars. The WNBA's momentum is incredibly fragile. It may never capture this level of attention again. If a labor dispute wipes out an entire season, or even part of one, then replacing the commissioner becomes inevitable if she is the only obstacle standing between a signed agreement and a lockout. Corporate media will likely package it as a respectful mutual separation. Expect polished statements praising Cathy Engelbert's service, celebrating league growth, and wishing her success moving forward. But let's be honest, this reportedly looks far more like a forced exit. The timing could hardly appear more suspicious. The CBA collapsed, panic spread everywhere, and now the league's leader is suddenly gone. It appears the players' direct or indirect demand for new leadership has finally been answered. For the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, this represents a massive victory. It proves they understand their leverage and are no longer afraid to use it. They recognize that the only thing truly valuable is the product created on the court. Without the players, league executives have absolutely nothing to sell. This entire situation proves that the balance of power in women's basketball has completely shifted. For decades, the WNBA acted as though giving women the opportunity to play was enough. Marketing remained limited, travel conditions were frustrating, and salaries stayed relatively low. Then the Caitlin Clark effect shattered the expectation that players should simply be grateful for the opportunity. Millions of new fans arrived after Caitlin Clark entered the league. Ticket prices exploded. Arenas filled to capacity. Merchandise flew off the shelves. The players realized that despite generating the money, they were still being treated like second-class employees. There is reportedly another major reason Cathy Engelbert may have reached the end. Unrivaled. Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart created this new 3-on-3 league. It is much more than a side project. It directly challenges the WNBA's long-standing monopoly. In only a few weeks of competition, Unrivaled offers players six-figure salaries, valuable equity, and a player-first environment. Suddenly, athletes finally had another option. The WNBA was no longer the only game in town. The biggest stars could simply join Unrivaled, earn their money, and leave the WNBA behind if league executives refused to pay fairly. At the very moment she no longer controlled the game, Cathy Engelbert reportedly tried playing hardball. She failed to recognize that the monopoly was already over. The owners reportedly lost confidence in Cathy Engelbert because she underestimated the growing threat posed by Unrivaled. She seemingly overlooked the players' ability to organize, invest, and build their own platform. Every player created new leverage. They did not just demand a bigger slice of the pie, they built an entirely new bakery. That left the WNBA cornered. To keep its biggest stars, the league had to present an unbelievable offer. After putting $1 million proposal on the table and still getting rejected, the owners reportedly realized they needed a completely different negotiator. They now want someone players actually trust and someone who understands today's era of athlete empowerment. Naturally, establishment media is already trying to spin the narrative. Critics are accusing the players of sounding ungrateful for rejecting $1 million offer. Headlines asking, "Is this too much too soon?" are almost guaranteed to appear, but do not fall for them. This story is not about greed. It is about it all comes down to simple math. Demanding your fair share is not greed. When the league is signing media deals worth hundreds of millions while players are limited to agreements representing only a tiny fraction of that value, the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. Roughly half of basketball-related revenue goes to NBA players. Historically, WNBA players have received only a much smaller share. These athletes are not asking for imaginary money. They are demanding the wealth they helped create. During labor negotiations, painting athletes as greedy has always been a classic tactic used to turn fans against them. But today's supporters are far smarter than that. They see sold-out arenas. They watch television ratings that sometimes outperform NBA broadcasts. They know the money exists. The league is still trying to keep most of the profits while the women generate the product. By rejecting this proposal, the players did more than refuse another agreement. They exposed what they believe is the company's real agenda and stripped away its carefully polished public image. Unfortunately for Cathy Engelbert, she became the public face of that system. Her reported resignation is only the beginning. So where does everything go from here? At one of the most critical moments in league history, the WNBA could suddenly face a leadership vacuum. If Cathy Engelbert truly is leaving, a replacement will need to arrive quickly. But honestly, who would even want this job? It is an impossible assignment. You must negotiate with a union that no longer trusts management. You must satisfy owners obsessed with protecting profits. And you must do it all under constant public scrutiny. The next commissioner will have to lead through conflict from day one. They will be expected to bridge what feels like an enormous divide. Meanwhile, the threat of a lockout remains very real. The entire 2026 season could be placed at risk if a new agreement is not finalized soon. Losing a season immediately after the league's biggest growth year would be catastrophic. For the business, it would be nothing short of corporate suicide. Yet the players have already shown they are willing to take that gamble. They have saved money. They now have additional sources of income while fighting for what they believe they deserve. They are prepared to wait. The owners, however, cannot afford a lockout. Television obligations must be honored. Arenas still need to be filled, and expenses continue piling up. Pressure is mounting from every direction. That is exactly why removing Cathy Engelbert reportedly makes strategic sense. By replacing the commissioner, ownership effectively presses the reset button. They can blame the stalled negotiations on previous leadership. It is a familiar corporate strategy. Introduce a new face and declare, "We are starting over. Let's negotiate again." Sometimes the leader becomes the sacrifice needed to save the deal. This could represent their final opportunity to stop the 2026 season from falling apart completely. It also gives them a chance to return to the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, saying, "We listened. We made changes. Now let's continue talking." Through all of this, one person remains impossible to ignore: Caitlin Clark. Although Caitlin Clark has never publicly demanded Cathy Engelbert's removal, her silence speaks volumes to many observers. Modern basketball revolves around superstar influence. LeBron James has long demonstrated the power elite players can hold within a franchise. If Caitlin Clark truly believed Cathy Engelbert was the right leader, many argue she would have publicly supported her. Instead, the league's biggest attraction, the player widely credited with transforming its financial future, appears aligned with the union instead of management's proposal. Caitlin Clark is no longer just a rookie sensation. She has become one of the sport's most influential power brokers. She has made that influence impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, the rest of the players continue standing together. Their unity is obvious across social media. They are tired of hearing endless excuses about investment phases, and the old slogan of betting on women has now transformed into a far louder demand: pay women. The WNBA owners have insisted for years. The owners insisted they could not pay players more because the league simply was not making enough money. Now that the revenue is finally pouring in, the players believe those excuses have officially expired. Cathy Engelbert's biggest weakness, according to this narrative, was her inability to transition from survival mode into an era of prosperity. She performed like an outstanding commissioner when the league was struggling, guiding it through difficult years and keeping everything alive. But once the WNBA began thriving, she allegedly proved unable to lead during a completely different kind of battle. So what happens next? If these reports are true and Cathy Engelbert is truly gone, the WNBA could be heading straight into dangerous territory. A lockout capable of threatening the entire 2026 season is now looming over the league. The players have drawn their line in the sand and show absolutely no signs of backing down. The commissioner may become the first casualty of this fight, but she almost certainly will not be the last. Questions now surround the league's entire structure. Some ownership groups could even consider selling their franchises. We may soon witness a complete overhaul of how the WNBA operates. The coming weeks will be absolutely critical. Everyone will be watching to see who ownership chooses as the next commissioner. Will they hire a former player? The Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, would likely welcome that decision. Or will they appoint another corporate executive? That could signal they are preparing for an even bigger battle. We also need to closely watch every statement released by the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA. If they publicly celebrate Cathy Engelbert's departure, it would strongly suggest they consider it a major victory. If they remain silent, it may indicate that securing financial changes remains their only priority. The WNBA has clearly outgrown its former identity. Real progress often requires leaving the past behind, no matter how uncomfortable that process becomes. Cathy Engelbert has come to symbolize that previous era. A time when the league desperately needed stability, corporate sponsors, and outside validation. But today's WNBA no longer seeks approval. It demands attention. Stability is no longer enough. What players want now is fairness and equity. The athletes have evolved. The fans have evolved. Even the business itself has evolved. The only thing many believe failed to change was the leadership. But this story is nowhere near finished. Keep watching every development while everyone waits for an official announcement. Watch Unrivaled. Monitor overseas opportunities. The players are proving they finally have real alternatives. In a market the WNBA once controlled without competition, it is now fighting to protect its own relevance. According to this narrative, the commissioner's reported departure ultimately comes down to one issue. The league refused to treat players like true partners instead of ordinary employees. The biggest question now is whether the WNBA is finally ready to recognize its athletes as genuine partners, or whether it will continue risking everything to preserve the old system. We may be witnessing a historic turning point. The players have ignited a movement that could permanently reshape women's professional sports. The commissioner is reportedly gone. The future remains completely unwritten, and clears throat, this contract appears finished. Things are likely to become far more chaotic before they finally improve. So stay with us. The league reportedly presented its biggest financial offer ever. More than $1 million in annual pay was supposed to silence critics and secure the WNBA's future. It was designed to announce the league's arrival and permanently define a brand new era. Instead, Caitlin Clark and the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, reportedly delivered the unimaginable. They refused the proposal, showed absolutely no hesitation, and walked away from the negotiating table altogether. Reports now claim that rejection has already claimed its biggest casualty. League officials have allegedly confirmed that Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is officially out. Everything changed the moment this new CBA proposal was rejected. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe, turn on every notification, and never miss another update. We'll catch you in the next video waiting for you on your screen.